of the market today, I mean, was there any sort of pronounced reaction that you saw to the RBA leaving interest rates on hold at that 2.5%?
Nadine, of course, that was the big focus today at about 2:30, but if we do have a look at the market, we didn't see a huge reaction there. We did actually continue to maintain the gains that we had actually seen throughout the day, leaving rates on hold as expected. So there was no surprise that we didn't see too much movement in the market. But in terms of some other economic data that came through, those building approvals that we had through at about 11:30, they were actually very strong, coming through for the month of October, up 11.4%. That was well ahead of the expected rise of about 5%, and of course ahead of the previous month's read where we did see a fall of 11%. So at that point when that data came through, we did actually see a bit of a pickup in the market and really continued on from that strength. Michael has pointed out obviously what's happened, most of the reaction to the rebound in those oil prices and those gold stocks really driving that materials sector higher. We did see some very strong volumes going through today, about $4.8 billion in the end, really reflecting the fact that investors were coming back in today. So certainly nice to see, particularly given the slump that we did see on the market yesterday and of course on Friday. And it did seem like we were shrugging off a lot of those negative leads that we had coming through this morning. So overall, I think a very positive day today.
Let's begin with Metcash, because while we did see plenty of activity in, say, the materials space, the energy space as well, this is one share that continued to get beaten up today. In fact, yes, by the end of the session, it was down by 13%. Leanne, this was, I guess, a carry-on from yesterday's story, a massive profit slide, but then the broker is really coming out with the knives today.
Nadine, that's exactly right. As you say, we've really continued on from the selling pressure that we saw yesterday. So over the last 2 days, we've actually seen the stock down close to 30%. So that's quite a significant fall in that share price. But of course, following that result that came through yesterday, which was actually very poor, we did see a poor set of numbers coming through. Those profits were down, earnings were down 11%, cash flows were down 44%. But of course, in addition to that was a lot of the outlook commentary, which looked very negative. In terms of tough competition and of course sliding grocery prices really continuing to affect this market, affect the stock, and also the outlook continuing to be very challenging. The company also said that they're expecting their earnings for FY15 to be about 14 to 18% below FY14, and that's actually about 10% below where consensus estimates were sitting at. So no surprises that we have seen some analysts coming through today providing some revisions to a lot of their forecasts, and I certainly do think that the outlook does continue to remain challenging, and in the short term we certainly have seen some selling pressure on that stock in relation to the outlook. I also think, given some of the early stages of the implementation of that strategic review, I do think we can potentially expect to see some further headwinds over the next 6 to 12 months or so. However, we do know that they are actually continuing at looking at lifting their marketing in terms of that price match strategy there. So that potentially could start to lift some sales coming into FY16, expecting to see a bit of an uplift in earnings then. But as I said, I think in the short to medium term there certainly is a concern out there, and a reason why we have seen that share price really tumbling.
From the 10 network, reportedly set to reject a bid on the table coming from Foxtel and Discovery Communications. Share price not doing well today. It's down around 24 cents. So yeah, I guess it's more of a watch and wait scenario there.
I think it certainly will be, Nadine. Of course, recently we have heard out a lot of speculation about a potential takeover of 10, and we have seen that share price, of course, rising off the back of this. Initially, we saw a lot of speculation about a potential takeover from Fairfax. There was then Time Warner that came through, and now, of course, Foxtel and Discovery. But I do think if any bid does fall through, that is going to provide a bit of disappointment from investors, and certainly we'll see that share price continuing to slide. As we know, 10 really is facing some pretty challenging conditions at the moment in terms of that advertising market and of course their ratings as well. So I do think there will be certainly a concern in terms of the outlook for the stock if we do actually see this bid falling through. So it will be a watch and wait one, as you say.